Hello everyone and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is Cammy. I am your host on your extra show for the week as always, and I'm delighted to have some sage advice from one of Heart and Hand's more experienced podders, and that is my very good friend Alan Bradley. Alan, thank you for coming on this week. It'll be a tough show, but I needed someone who I knew has seen these kind of trials and tribulations before.
That's why I look so old now, Cammy, isn't it? I've been through so many of them.
You're only 32.
Well, and I did have a hard paper round, though, in my defence, yeah.
But how are you keeping after last night's debacle?
Oh, Cammy, I've tried to kind of barrel things about and put it into some kind of order. At the moment, I've got a combination of frustrated, just numb, past angry, scunnered. I think discombobulated, to be honest with you, is my word for today. Because at the moment, Cammy, it's, if you'd asked me last Friday how I was, it was, oh my goodness, that's us back on track again. Even if you'd asked me 30 minutes into Easter Road, it was like, God, this is just an extension. And it's just been, I was going to say up and down like something else. I'll say it's been up and down like a fiddler's elbow, to be honest with you. Do you know, and I, to be honest with you, I'll keep supporting as I've always done. I'll always go to games, but they just can't keep doing this. These Cammy, things do need to change in some way. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Rangers, were pretty hit with injuries across the course of the build-up to the game at Dens Park last night, Alan. Now, Dundee also had their injuries, so I'm not going to use that as an excuse, and I'll do a little bit of a spoiler now for you folks. I have no excuses to be able to explain what happened in Dundee last night, so please don't think that. But Clinton Nisala comes in, Alan, into the centre of defence. We obviously know we've had a number of injuries there. Robin Proper was kept, but also was given the captain's armband. Nico Raskin was out due to suspension. No Tav, no Butland, as we expected. John Souttar, I think we will not see again for a couple of months. It was an interesting one. I was at Easter Road and, I was able to see that Leon King was not just the name on the team sheet. He was an actual physical person. Came on, I didn't think was too bad, but Insiala for me was an interesting choice. I don't think he did terribly, but for a player of his pedigree, being where he has been and where he's received his football and education, I would have hoped to have been able to see a bit more from him. Saw him in the Man United friendly at Murrayfield, didn't give him too much criticism for that. But yeah, that was a defence which, as it ultimately went on to show, there's just a real disorganisation in that defence. And you can do all the changes and swap the players and move their positions from left to right, no matter what you have to do. But what I think I saw within, the first opening 10 minutes from the defence was just, they've got no shape and they've got no structure, and they just really, really struggled to understand where each other had to be and where each other actually were.
I would agree with that, and as you say, I think it is fair, obviously, on the young laddie to start off with. It was just horrendous that first, I don't know, kind of 5-10 minutes or so. Be unfair, I think, to overly criticise him, because I think, to be honest with you, he didn't have a good game, but he did okay considering the context of him being thrown in there. The rest of it, you'd be expecting more. You'd be expecting someone like Proper with experience and so on to maybe try and help the laddie go through it. We'll go into the detail as well. Both the fullbacks as well, absolutely terrible. And I think at some point we'll get onto the kind of wider how we should play within domestic football and especially away from home. But it was just absolutely horrendous. And I think every team now, Cammy, they know. And to be honest with you, Hibs clearly did that all when they were playing, put high balls. Dundee didn't even need to do that, because it became a kind of knife through butter as well when they were just running directly at us. And defensively, Cammy, even challenges or tackles, so many half-hearted trying to put my foot and nick the ball away, as opposed to it's Rangers, we're playing away from home, you've got to win this physicality, you've got to win the fight, then the so-called quality will come through. It was just all like powder puff, Cammy, all over the place, yeah.
Well, I'll touch on that point in just a second, but to go through the kind of a bit of the timeline of the game, Nadeem Bajrami, I thought Alan was pretty unlucky. A great first touch to create a chance in the opening minutes, and he hit it with his left-hand side, just narrowly past the post. I thought he was unlucky. And then Dundee take the lead in 5 minutes. Again, a defensive calamity, as we've just mentioned there, including the midfielders, I may add, because we just simply don't clear our lines well enough. We have this issue where, again, because of that lack of organisation, players don't know who's supposed to run to be able to try and cover a spare ball. Dundee are able to get out to the right-hand side, cut back, and it's a fairly easy slot just to be able to take the lead. I think the worst thing for me about this goal, Alan, was not the scramble within the box. It was not the static defending. It wasn't we've got no idea who's supposed to be marking who. It's not the clearing the lines. For me, the worst thing I felt last night was the minute that goal went in, I wasn't even surprised.
No.
I wasn't taken aback. I wasn't even, shocked that Dundee had been able to come at us with a degree of force and purpose. And that was probably the worst thing for me. And it probably made me think a little bit. And I've spoken to a few people who have kind of been in the same mindset, that this is it's what we come to expect now. And I don't agree with that acceptance, by the way. I'm not suggesting in any way it's right, but it's where we are at the moment.
Oh, aye. And I think I've always been, people have accused me, Alan always defends them, this, that, he's not as angry, because I really try and kind of step back, but I'm the same as you. When it went in, I think I probably even put maybe in our chat, not a surprise. I really wasn't surprised at all. I think what infuriates me as well is, if you think of, remember in the past when it was like Tav watched the man at the back, I've always said that kind of as a defender, and I think you played there too, it's like kind of watching the man, but obviously making sure people behind them. At that one as well, when it went out to the right, everybody it was like, let's look at the ball. And the guy just cut it back. The boy finished it, well, didn't he? But again, surely people, you should be looking at runners, you should be looking at who's where, but they all just seem to be sucked towards that. And I think that was disappointing. And as you say, this theme will continue throughout the game. It just becomes no surprise there. What's going to happen now?
Dundee had a couple of penalty claims. Alan, I'm keen to get your thoughts on this, because it's split opinion a little bit.
Yeah.
The first one is, they're both involve Simon Murray. The first one is, I think the nicest way I could say it is that he seems to get in instalments. There's two hands in the back for Ridvan Yilmaz. I think Simon Murray realises that he's actually in the box, Chris. He's nearly in the 6-yard box. He feels the push. There's a little bit of a kind of delay, and then he goes to ground. Not a penalty for me.
No, absolutely the same. And they do talk about this, don't they? Like, contact is a physical game, and you should still be allowed to make a bit of contact. But you're right. You actually saw the wee light bulb coming on his head, and suddenly it became I'm going to go down, and it just, in a way, that kind of highlighted, what it was. But definitely not Cammy. No.
The second one, immediately prior to the Rangers equaliser, involves Nsiala again with Simon Murray. Now, this one was interesting because I've maybe got a little bit of PTSD from the Hadji challenge at Easter Road, where the penalty was given. His arms are around Murray. I think there was maybe potentially contact with his feet. We always try to view it on the basis of, would you like to see that given if it was at the other end? Mm-hmm. I think this one was incredibly soft, but it does go into that I've seen them given category.
I didn't think it was a penalty right at the time. I just thought the big boy was looking up, the two of them, and there was a kind of bit of a collision between them. I didn't think there was a penalty, but immediately my thought went to, here we go, it's far, it's going to be given. Just purely because, as you say, not even just the Hadji one, but just the way things seem to have gone in football. So I do think they actually got it right. Both the referee and VAR. But I'm like you. I just, to be honest with you, if I had to put money on anything, it was a case of, here we go again. We're going to lose, a penalty because of it. So, no, I thought, to be honest with you, good decision, to be honest with you, by the ref and with VAR as well. Backing it up, Cammy here.
And Rangers scored literally a few seconds later. A great piece of counter-attack play. Hadji's able to play a good ball forward. Egeman, who I'll be honest with you, is probably the only ray of light in a dark tunnel at the moment, is able to squeeze out to Vlavklav Cherny. Cherny slots home past Trevor Carson. Now, I'm going to give Trevor Carson his praise. I think he's a good goalkeeper. I think he's had a few good games against us, last night included. It's a great finish by Tierney. He has to be able to concentrate. I know that there's all the clamour of the penalty claims, and Dundee were maybe caught aback a little bit, but we still had to be able to create the opportunity, which we did with some, very much against the grain, decisive play, and Tierney finishes. I think that, Tierney is one of these players, Alan, that it just feels to me that there's times where he's almost anonymous and then he can come into the game and create something, potentially even score, gets a really good shot away, forces a good save. But this is the kind of thing that we absolutely need to see more of him being able to do for us, because it's very nice getting a third goal, in a 3-0 win.
Getting back into the game, yeah.
This is where, as you say, we need someone to make sure that, okay, this is a decisive moment. This is a pivotal moment, and we need to be able to get this finished. And he had a couple of chances at Easter Road. Don't get me wrong; there were some glimmers of it there. But this is a good goal. You cannot take that away, despite how frustrated we are at Rangers at the moment.
No, you're right, and I think also, by the way, the keeper. I thought the keeper did well playing over to Hadji. Wonderful touch, as you say, killed the ball. Igamani as well. It's brilliant. It's like, oh, has he lost it? Oh no, he's still got it. But the way he even put it through, just at nice pace. But as you say, he had a lot of work to do, and I think Tierney on his wrong foot, but finished it really well too. And you can afford to have, I think you can afford to have a couple of luxury players, Cammy, if the rest of the structure's okay. So, for example, in the good old days, if we actually had a solid defence there and were pretty controlled in midfield, you can afford to have these type of players that at times it doesn't come off, at times it doesn't, but you do know that he can give you that wee bit of brilliance. Now, that could be either him finishing or even just creating a chance. So, as much as he's frustrating at times, sometimes he'll go up, you think we're on the break, he loses it. But I'd actually, to be honest with you, I can tolerate that, Cammy, because you know he's going to give you something at some point, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a great point, because I think that we've both seen excellent Rangers teams in the past.
Yeah.
That it starts with the defence. I think it builds a confidence. I think it builds a reassurance that even if you do miss a chance, or you're trying to have a break, or do a little bit of kind of build up going forward, if you lose it, then it's not the end of the world, because that defence behind you will deal with whatever comes at them, and you'll get the ball back. They'll recycle it, and then you can go again. Right now, as things stand, we're so fragile, because if we miss a chance, and listen, this is especially away from home, baby, this is where our worst issues are, the defence will end up, even if it's not necessarily finishing in a goal, it still gives the opposition team a bit of kind of bite and hunger to keep coming at us, and commit to being able to try and get a goal against us, which the defence, I think, welcome at times. So I think it bleeds into the forward areas for us, because these players now know, well, if I don't take an appropriate touch, if I don't find the right pass, all of a sudden I'm on my heels again, because I'm having to go back the way.
Aye, and if you go back, I mean, here we go, Alan does it again, stop rewind play. If you go back to even Big Wallace's team in the 70s and so on, it was that kind of solid. Then it would go through, obviously, kind of Greg, in bits too, but Walter as well, even Advocat, his shape. But it's no rocket science, nothing. I know football has changed in most places, probably not, unfortunately, in our league, it's not. And that gives us a big dilemma as well between, are we looking for players with a profile for Europe or domestic? And I think, by the way, Rangers have got it wrong. I know we need the money, and that's the most important. But to be honest with you, in terms of the profile of the players that we've got, it's not good enough for away. But away, it's always been away with Rangers in the away games. And you'd see even Walter would do it as well. Suddenly would put people into midfield, say like maybe Derek McInnes or whatever, put Big Bomber in the middle, and you go, hold on, we've got these players. But it's no rocket science. And before you come onto that park as well, you talked even about the way they start. Even these people that have now been here, some of them for so many months, some maybe longer, you're away from home, you know what's going to happen, whether it's St Mirren, whether it's Fir Park or whatever. Look, I know we want to play this expansive stuff, but we need to be solid at the back. We need to have that structure at the back. The midfield, anything there, we need to be mopping it up. Whether you've got your blooming Ian Fergusons or whoever it would be, but we need to do this solid stuff, and then to sprinkle the magic at the front, which is fine. But we've not, and it's just so blinking frustrating, Cammy. How many times as well, as you say, whether it puts more pressure on them, you've got to be more clinical, or we haven't, because you just know, as sure as eggs is eggs, we're going to lose stupid goals, and it gives these away teams confidence as well, rather than them going, oh my God, Rangers are coming, look at the big support, look at the physicality, this is going to be so hard. It just, to them now, they must be actually thinking, they're actually fancying, most of the managers now are saying, disappointed we didn't get the 3 points. Come on, Cammy, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's because Rangers, especially away from home, now have a reputation for being inherently weak,
18, I think,
and that's
sorry, Cammy, I think I heard the stat, something like out of 48 points since it went a bit pear-shaped after Clement had a wonderful run and so on. Out of 48 points, we've won something like 18. We've picked up 18 out of 48 points away from home,
Yeah, that's just. I mean, again, we'll talk about it shortly, but that is just simply not sustainable.
Yeah.
First half, I think, came and went, Alan, and I think my biggest concern, aside from that fragility that we've mentioned as well, was we just had too many players not taking care of the ball.
Yes,
loose touches, short or long passes. We just weren't able to put kind of play together. Now, there has been a lot of focus on the manager. I totally understand that, and rightly so.
Mm-hmm.
But my frustration at this stage, when you look at the shape and everything else, absolutely lies with him. But there was an equal part to this for me where it just felt these players didn't understand why it was so important to make sure that they could get the ball under control, that they'd made the right decisions. We've seen some of these players play brilliant, fast-flowing football, been able to play the ball first time. We've been screaming out for it for months. And only a few short weeks ago, we were able to do so. We did it in the Old Firm game at New Year, where, we looked purposeful and we knew what we were going to do with the ball. We've done the same thing in Europe. However, we've quickly learned the Old Firm game, League Cup final, obviously, in the New Year game. Games in Europe, we have a completely different attitude. And I think that shows when, again, we make our decisions, whenever we try to get the ball under control. And halftime last night, I was watching this going, I don't know if they don't care, or I don't know if they just don't realise that they're doing it. But it's just simply, it's nowhere near good enough.
There's a psychological thing there, as you say, at home, and they couldn't even blame the park last night. In this time of year, that park was in really good condition anyway. It's a psychological thing at home. Absolutely fine and so on, and that's the thing. And away from home, it's as if, I don't know, and even when they're playing well, there's a wee switch suddenly gets flicked, and then they revert back to this, I don't know, give it across the back, give it to Proper, he plays it to, I don't know, Barron kind of puts it wide. We miss out Raskin in terms of that. No, I'm going to play an incisive forward thing, but they all seem to then go back to that, my first touch, oh shit, I'll go back first, and then I'll play it back the way. And if you look at them, you suddenly see 5 or 6 of them first touch, rather than, as you say, when they're on it, it's a case of move it forward and we go up together. They just revert back, Cammy, to type, and it's... And again, here we go, here's the old Rangers da. That's how you're saying away from home. You need a team where, I was going to say all Scottish players, but you need a lot of people with a lot of fight and a lot of team spirit. And I don't see that. I see people coming over here, I don't know, some football professionals or whatever, they just don't seem to get, and they talk about the connection between the Rangers fans. My God, we're going everywhere, we're supporting them, and at times they just don't seem to have that extra kind of spur or desire to win. And again, at this old duck, well, I've kind of got 2 years in my contract now, and what really can happen, I don't know. I'm probably being unfair on them, Cammy, but to me, it just doesn't look like a Rangers team that we would go out there. And even if we don't do well over there, but if everybody has really given 100%, and I think what frustrates me more than anything, you can see we have got the quality. And as you say, there are games. There'll be people down in England, by the way, I'll have watched the Spurs game and I'll watch the Old Firm game, even the cup final when, my God, Rangers have got some. And then if they watch that, Cammy, do you know what I mean? It's flipping just night and day.
Well, there's not much more within the second half, Alan, just to kind of wrap up the summary of the game. Vladimir Černý does have a very good shot, which again is well said by Carson.
Yeah,
there is a offside call for Dundee. It's wafer thin, but it's absolutely proven to be correct. Again, you can't take away from the fact that Dundee absolutely gave us a game last night. I don't think it would have been too much of a surprise, actually, if Dundee had managed to get all 3 points. But we've obviously covered where Rangers played their part within that game.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about something you've just mentioned there, actually, which is the connection between the fans. There was audible boos towards Philippe Clement at the end of the game. He came out after, mentioned that the fact that the board is 200% behind him. Now, I wasn't surprised when I heard that, if I'm being honest with you, Alan, because I imagine that Patrick Stewart probably has sat with him already and said, they're going to start having the conversations regarding transfer windows, I'm sure, when he came in December. The manager has made reference to the fact that Patrick Stewart will be talking to the media about, or he not even maybe talking to the media, but he will be making some sort of announcement, statement, however you want to call it, regarding the situation for the transfer window this month. I expect that to say, we're going to have to cut our cloth accordingly. We have to be austere, all of the things that we can expect him to come out and say. I've always had the opinion, Alan, that, when the away support turn on you, you've got a big problem. I've been there under Beale, I've been there under Gio. I wasn't in Dundee last night. I'd made the correct decision not to go, despite the fact I was offered a number of tickets. But listen, I was at Fir Park when we were 2-0 down, and I could hear it then. We obviously were able to scrape that away. Easter Road was slightly different because I think that fans probably couldn't. I mean, I think they could believe it, but, from a 2-0 position, you hope that the game's cut and dried. You end up with a 3-3 draw, and again, it's maybe just that acceptance now of we're away from home, we know we're a calamity, nothing's guaranteed. 3 points from 4 away games, 2 on either side of the Old Firm victory. And this is where I think, when I've seen the away fans properly vocalise this, and I'll be honest with you, I think back to certain periods. I remember being up, I'm sure it was up at McDermott Park when the Old Firm game in Sydney was announced. Now, to my recollection, and I could be wrong, I think that started to come out around about, it might have been 3 or 4 p.m. in the afternoon. By the time that we had got to the game, there were already banners created against the idea of playing the Old Firm game. The reason why I mention all of this is because those away fans that you've just mentioned are the guys who go to Nice, they go to Man United. They're going to continue to try and follow this because I think that for them it's the passion that brings them, even despite what they're watching, and I've got every credit to them. But I think it becomes incredibly toxic at this stage now, and I don't believe the manager saying that he didn't hear it. I don't believe that for a single minute. It's just it's not going to get better unless we are able to produce some miracles. It might be transfers coming in. I strongly doubt it. I've heard a lot of the Philippe Clement advocates been able to say, well, we have to give them to the end of the season. Sacking managers is not the answer every single time that we have to do it throughout the course of the turn of the season. We can't afford it, but if I'm being perfectly honest with you, these are not reasons to keep him in that job.
No, and I think I've been on with yourself, I've been on with David as well, and it's a here Alan goes, because I just hated the rip it up start again. We was getting every year, gets to the AGM, or here's someone else in. He then has to get rid of the players that the other person brought in because he doesn't like them. We give them away. So I've all this season as well, I've been, I'm sorry, we just need to keep a hold of them, because I thought we'll get to the end of the year, we'll do something in January, see how things kind of go. The fans, the majority of them now, Cammy, you can see it everywhere. I've totally lost it. I feel sorry for him. I know they'll all be screaming. I actually feel he inherited like a mess when he came in. He did so well those first 20 games. Then obviously we kind of failed in terms of the shit show, a couple of them away from home and so on. So we failed last year. and also having to get rid of so many players in the summer as well. The whole Hamden. So I really feel sorry for the guy, and I also I feel more annoyed, by the way, at the board, because they've kind of sat there, and this guy, where Bisgrove just clamoured away off, and some of the other ones went away off too, and they're all sitting in the background, and it's the manager, obviously, the team, that he's obviously the front of it, he's the lightning rod. So I feel really sorry for him in that way. I think the results ultimately are going to speak for themselves. But what I would like is the board actually to come out and say something. I mean, what are they going to do? Are they going to keep him and say we're going to give him some investment? We're going to just say bring in players. I doubt it. We're going to get rid of other ones. We are going to stay, with them. Are we going to bring in someone interim? What? I'm just more annoyed at them. I just feel as if the guy is under so much blinking pressure. And at times as well, when we have played well, even the likes of the St Mirren one, okay, the team and so on, but guys making individual errors and so on, and that ultimately costs you your job, but the buck will stop with them. So, sorry, in an Alan Bradley kind of way, not in a happy, clappy way, I think at the moment the big groundswell is pretty much pushing him now, and I'm not sure. I think the board potentially would, like other ones, have kind of. I think they'll probably have to get rid of him, although there's a wee bit of me as well, knowing this board, Cammy, I think they'll just end up hanging on to him for a wee bit. But as I say, I feel really sorry for him. But he hasn't got, it's a bit like the Paul Le Guen one too, he hasn't got what you need to do domestically away from home. And that was where, so many, and it's my point as well that we covered in Dominant with Martin and David and Andy and so on, John, myself. This whole, is it European, is it domestic? And I think the previous, what do we call them, the directors of football and so on, I think Rangers have been a bit too geared towards the European thingy. And if that is the case, well, let us know, because we're having to put up with all this shite, to be honest with you. Rangers getting beat domestically, Cammy, so... I don't know if I went round the houses, but... Oh, and by the way, while I'm on a big rant as well, and Clement too, and he comes out with all this nonsense. I would rather he just did the old, we're disappointed, we get beat or whatever, but he goes into some stuff. But why the hell would he come out yesterday and criticise Igamani, specifically saying, he went away out left? He's probably the one shining light, Cammy, and I don't understand some of those daft things that he does, I don't know if you heard that one, but...
Yeah, I mean, I did, but...
Speak to the guy behind the scenes and all that, the young lad.
Yeah, but, I mean, I get that. I mean, I'll probably go back through that in a wee bit of kind of reverse order. I mean, I don't understand Eagleman criticism, right? I think there's probably elements of that throughout the game where someone was maybe explaining to him that within the first 20 minutes, Dundee had something like 7 or 8 shots on goal. We had one. We had 80% possession. We weren't doing enough with it. I'm not justifying necessarily criticism of Eagleman, by the way. And there were times where the ball was absolutely sticking to him like Velcro, and other times where he couldn't control it. But Eagleman was not the problem last night. There's absolutely no doubt around that. I think that was a little bit of a lightning rod because, as I mentioned earlier on, he has been, an absolute ray of light in a tunnel of darkness at the moment. There is merit, by the way, right? And again, I want to be completely fair with this because there is merit to say that Philippe Clement has been fairly rudderless.
And the injuries as well, by the way, Cammy. But
I get that. Okay. I'll come on to that.
Okay.
But I think the issue that is fair for Philippe Clement to say is that, he has been kind of without any real form of direction whilst we went months and months and months to be able to replace Bennett and Bisgrove. Understand that they obviously parted ways for their own specific reasons. I'm kind of beyond that now. I understand what's happened with that. We were lackadaisical in our recruitment to be able to replace those guys. That new board setup has been in place now for less than a month, but on the board, I think that there's not necessarily. I wouldn't aim criticism at the moment to them, and I'll caveat that by saying that Philippe Clement is not doing well. What I mean by that is that within his own job role, he's not doing well with the things that are within his control. Injuries are not within his control.
I would have been sacked in my old role, Cammy, with that record. I would have been out. Do you get what I mean? Any business.
Ultimately, I understand that. But, you've got to be assessed on the decisions that you make and controlling the controllables. You can't control injuries. You can't control, if a player gets a cold. You can't control, a ridiculous refereeing decisions. All of those things are true.
Yeah, but if we start playing with 2 men up front and suddenly there's 4 and we're doing really well, it's like, why the hell change it and go back to leaving somebody up there? And it's made a lot of decisions that way. Yeah.
But I think the thing is, though, that you can see the reversal of some of those decisions when you see halftime substitutions. Against Motherwell, we literally gifted them 2 goals and 45 minutes worth of football before he then made the decision to change it. Yeah. He has spoken a lot about being able to get some of the B team players, youth team players in and around the setup, and where there has been opportunities to play them, he hasn't. He's brought Clinton and Ciala in really from the goal. I mean, Leon King would have come in from the goal, but King's been on the bench and Ciala hasn't been involved whatsoever within that. Now, my understanding is he has been involved within the first team training, that's fine, but he hasn't been on the bench for first team match days. Leon King has. And those are the things that are within his control. I think now, to come back to the board and what you were mentioning there, I think the board almost still have a degree of leeway because of time. Because, as I say, Patrick Stewart hasn't been in role yet for even a month, and he wasn't blind to what he was coming into. He is not walking into this, on the 16th of December saying, well, now I'll start looking at the Rangers results and now I'll start looking at the form of play and where the temperature is. He knows all of this. He'll know all of this before he even accepted the position. What the board, for me, have to do now, Alan, is that barring a major miracle and a huge upturn in form, because I don't think they'll sack him today or over the weekend or whatever, I genuinely don't. I think they're going to have to wait for things to get really bad. But if they don't improve, and what I mean by that is with results and with performances, because I think, at times, and we've done it, by the way, across the course of the last few weeks, I actually didn't hear as much venom, as I say, in Edinburgh as I heard last night, because I think Rangers fans can't accept where things just don't go our way. I think we can accept not winning the League Cup because of, horrendous officiating. What we can't accept is where there's not going to be changes to the things that are within our power to change. And if we can't bring in players, then I think most Rangers fans will understand that, we are working on an incredibly tight budget. We have to be able to deal with it. There's still value to be found, but the board have to be able to resolve that issue.
And that's why I feel the board. And another thing too, will Patrick Stewart have the autonomy to actually, or is he just going to be in there and kind of following the existing board in that same kind of horrible way? I'm hoping that, but they do need to come out and say, as you say, this is where we want to go to. And by the way, we don't have the finances, and but that's the thing. There's just this vacuum at the moment. And even with him saying a few days ago, it'll be in a couple of days. And then I think he said yesterday, it'll be in a few days. We'll come out and actually tell us and let us know the bigger context and all that's going on. And then ultimately we can make the decision. But when it comes down to the actual results and that, and especially away from home, Cammy, it's just no good enough. You know what I mean?
Well, it's not. But then on that point, the board can have a very frank conversation with Luke Clement to say, we have St Johnstone at home. We've obviously got Fraserburgh at home in the Scottish Cup, which I'll be stunned if there's more than 15,000 people at. But we're going away to Tannadice, we're going away to Tynecastle, Parkhead and Rugby Park in a very, series of upcoming away games. And right now, I don't feel confident about getting maybe more than 3 points from any of those 4 games. And that's where the board will, I think, look at him and say, tell me how you feel these games will go. Do you know what I mean? What are you looking to be able to try and change? And if they can put that on him, then he has to be able to answer that question.
And they should have been having those discussions with him, when it's been going up and down anyway. So
very, very possibly. But again, although we have had the winter schedule across, obviously the kind of festive periods, when you look at that as a wider picture, we're 9 points behind Celtic at Christmas. We're now 15 points behind them, and we're literally talking about 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So all of this, and I'm not saying, by the way, it hasn't been in the post, because I'm not saying in any way our away form in the league has been anywhere near acceptable. I think something like the last 16 games, we've won 4 of them. Something like that, I'm sure I read somewhere. So it's not a new problem. However, this has all been almost like a blitz in terms of where these performances and drop points have come at us thick and fast. And to use the manager's own credence, he said, we will have a better Rangers team October, November time. It's getting worse.
Yeah.
I do mitigate some of that with injuries. So I understand that he's lost his captain, he's lost his vice-captain, he's lost arguably his better defender than John Souttar. But he is now in the January window.
Mm-hmm.
He can now look at being able to try and strengthen where it's at all possible. I mentioned earlier on some people who, understand it's a transitional season and they want to give him time to be able to do that. That's fine, but then start making moves now for players who may come in the summer so you can get those deals secured and give some degree of progression. But he has to also answer that against St Johnstone on Sunday, Alan. How do you feel that game's going to go?
At home, I'm absolutely fine. I think, to be honest with you, I'd be very surprised if Rangers drop points at all on Sunday. I just don't think that'll be the problem. I also think Aberdeen as well, from that one too. So I've actually got no kind of doubt that we will actually pick up the 3 points, Cammy. It's just this whole away thing that's done us. I think another stat as well, I heard as well, something like about 12 of the points that Celtic are ahead of us is because they've did better away from home than us, and that's just my biggest frustration, Cammy. So
yeah, and it's been interesting to hear the manager talk recently about budgets and differences within that. I do accept that to an extent, but that doesn't wash when you're playing.
You're playing teams that have got less. We've got teams.
Yeah, but these teams that are hurting you, are the ones who have got far less budget than you have. So that door swings both ways. But I think the difference right now, as things stand, is, and I have, it pains me to say I have no joy in saying it, but as Celtic now parade towards a title, all they'll simply do with every point that we drop is just continue to grow in confidence.
Yes.
And some of that stuff that we'd mentioned before, because I genuinely don't believe this is a good Celtic team. I genuinely don't. I think that they have got some real standard level players playing consistently for them. But whilst we continue to hemorrhage points, it doesn't matter because they'll continue to grow in that swagger. And I think that, as their continued elevation grows because of the quagmire that Rangers are in, now we are sitting in a position where gifting them points, they can go into these away games and almost to a certain extent they can relax because they don't have to have that pressure of, well, this is a must-win game because we're in a title race, because the title race is done and dusted and has been for months. And that most important thing that Rangers have to be able to do is we have to look at ourselves and we have to fix what we can fix. Almost remove Celtic from the picture at the moment because all of our problems right now are within our own grasp.
All we need to do, Cammy, is but we need to get solidity in there. So we need to have, like we said, the Rangers from the back, and we need to actually have a strong defence, a really good defence as well. We just need to be so much more, I don't know, kind of competitive and so on, and at these away ones, but we definitely need more physicality, stronger mentality as well. So it's really, to me, it comes down to the recruitment, to be honest with you, and that one. But Philip Clement, he needs to take a lot of this blame as well because ultimately he's a manager and he needs to get people motivated. To me, it comes down to that one. I'm not worried too much about any of the kind of home stuff at all. I'm not worried about playing Celtic in big games, Cammy. But it's ultimately the bread and butter. Even in Europe, I'm thinking to myself, okay, we've still got the two to come up, but it's just this domestic thing. And to me, all that it does, it just highlights where our vulnerability is, really.
Yep, I think that's fair. I was quite calm when I came
on.
You
get me ranting, Cammy.
Now you've wound me up, Bradley. Listen, that will do us for this week. I think we've covered all the major points, and we've even been able to squeeze in some, angry man shouting at clouds. But
sorry,
it was always going to be a tough listen because of how we are at the moment, and it's just the feeling in the camp. But if you've made it this far, listeners, thank you so much for joining us. If you'd like to hear more of Rangers content, and there are some positives in there for us to be able to try and talk about, I'm sure somewhere we can find them, but you'll get loads of Rangers content over on our Patreon site, which is patreon.com/Heart and Hand. Thank you to our producers, Mike Lee and Paul Miles. thank you, Alan, for coming on. You are always dragged out in occasions like this as well because of your experience. But listen, again, it's always tough to come on and talk about these things. But as always, you come on and take the hit. You're a gentleman and a scholar.
Well, and I would apologise to everyone else because I've just burdened them. But I've now discombobulated you, Cammy. So I mean, that's. But no, as ever, it's always great to come on. Anyway, it's horrible at the moment, Andy, but Cammy, but we just need to bloom and stick in there, and hopefully things will, take a turn for the better. Yeah.
Calling me Andy, that's because you're too used to arguing with McGowan whenever Davey has to bring you out on the flagship.
No, Andy and I gang up now.
Do the breakdown of it.
Yeah.
I know. Listen, folks, thanks so much for listening. David will be back on flagship on Monday to unpack the St Johnstone game. If you're heading along to Ibrox, then hopefully, as I say, a Rangers performance in response to that horrendous show that we saw last night as well. But listen, we soldier on, we'll continue to motor, and things can only get better.